I'm here with a great Sven from Aborted to talk about their upcoming new record, Vault of Horrors, out March 15th on Nuclear Blast. And I see that you're wearing an appropriate shirt considering the album theme. I like where you're going with this.
Everyday spooky season, right?
Yeah, man, every day is Halloween. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of this album. When did the idea for Vault of Horrors start to brew in your mind?
Probably right when Maniacal got released. We already started writing, especially Ken back then, because we already knew like we weren't going to be playing a lot of shows for it, so there was not much else to do besides writing. So we started writing for it right away, and then the concept kind of came up. Uh, I would say like a couple months, maybe 6 months after already. So pretty early on, to be honest. We've been working on it for quite a while.
Is it a more challenging record to make when you have this concept, this theme behind it that really drives not just the lyrical content, but the whole every single element of every single song?
Not so much, really. I mean, it's not a concept album because I tend to stay away from those things because try I did it in the past and it kind of gets after like you've done like 80% of the record, it kind of gets hard to wrap it up. You're running out of steam, so to say. So that's why I chose to really like have every song have its own universe and its own place, but it fits under a bigger umbrella. Vault of Horrors is also something from Tales of the Crypt, which makes sense to like talk about it a whole bundle of scary stories together.
What was the criteria for you when it came to picking out those scary stories?
I mean, it's a mixed bag. It's all movies, obviously we all like and have a lot of fun with, and then still have fun with rewatching. And it was kind of a mixed bag of taking things that most people would know, and then half of it being things that they didn't know. So there's your comfort zone, so to say, that everybody can relate to, and then some newer shit for people to discover.
Did the tracks, when you're putting the songs together and the themes of the movies, of the songs, did that influence who you invited to be a guest vocalist on the track, or those two things are completely separate?
It really depended. I'm trying to think of I mean, I had the list ready, and then it was once I had the list ready, it was kind of obvious where everybody would go. I think except maybe Ollie, because for Ollie I was doubting between two songs, the one he's on, and then one that did make it on the album, but that's coming out later. And then obviously when we knew like okay, this song fits best in the flow of the album, then obviously I knew where I was going to place Ollie. But everything else was pretty easy to do. I mean, it was a puzzle to make, that's for sure.
What puzzle piece was the hardest to put together?
I think in one hand it was figuring out the theme and then who fits the theme the best. I think that was one thing, because we didn't write all the songs with specifically having, musically at least having a certain movie in mind. So once I knew what the topic was going to be, I think it was an extra challenge for Spencer, who did all the cinematic sounds, to kind of try to blend the musical violence that we have with the actual soundtrack vibes of the movie that we're dealing with, to kind of bring two worlds together, if you want. I think that
How
was.
was it for you working with these all of these different vocalists? It's not like you just have one or two guest vocalists. You have one on every track.
I mean, it was fine. I mean, everybody I known, of course, so it was very easy to get everybody on board. Everybody's been friends, either recent friends or been friends for decades. Like Alex from the Spies. I mean, we've been meaning to do something together for ages, so it's cool that it finally came together. But it was very easy because everybody's professional. They know what they're doing. It all came together very easily.
Did you give them some freedom in terms of where to come in the track, lyrics? How was that process?
So I tracked everything first by myself, and then Dave and I went through all the songs, and we're kind of like picking out parts that we thought would fit everyone's voice the best, and then we'd highlight them. But I also told him, like, this is my guide. This is where I think you would fit best. If you want to do something else, if you prefer a different part, or if you want to change the part, go ahead. And if you want to add stuff, sure, go ahead. Just do whatever you want. So they had complete freedom.
Is there someone that you would like to have had on one of the tracks that for whatever reason didn't work out?
Yeah, but maybe that'll happen on the song that's not out yet. So I'm gonna keep that in the vault for now.
Fair, fair enough. When you're looking at the diversity of the themes behind the album, I mean, they all have the underlining of horror, that's for sure. But
Mhm.
each movie and each theme behind each song is very different from one another. When you're putting the songs together, you know you're going to have to enhance those differences in order to give that better feel, that better texture about what the track is about. But were you concerned about keeping the album somewhat cohesive so that the record still feels like a record, not necessarily just a bunch of songs thrown in together?
Yeah. What we did at first is, like, even before the themes became, or the topics became part of the whole ensemble of the sonic atmosphere. I already kind of set up the track listing of the whole record in advance. It didn't really shift, to be honest, after the drums and the guitars were set. So everything kind of blended in together nicely. And when Spencer did his stuff, he also was given the track listing. He had full pre-production of everything, so he kind of knew how it was going to be put together. So he knew how to make it flow into each other as well. So if you're prepared like that and you know what you want, it wasn't that bad, to be honest.
Because that was one of the first things that I noticed is that the album has that individuality to it, but it still feels like a full length record. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like piecework, which I think is really important for any record, at least for me. So I was surprised because other bands have taken similar approaches and not necessarily end up with that same vibe at the end. The other thing that I noticed was that you kind of brought a little bit of the vibe of the band of whose guest vocalist you have on into the sound of the track. At least that's the impression that I got. Maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of got that vibe. Was that on purpose? Am I seeing things that don't exist? What's happening?
I think it depends on the track. I think the only one that we kind of like purposely did it was Death Coat with Alex, because that breakdown could have been, a despised icon breakdown. So that one was kind of like on purpose. But everything else, not really. We just kind of we did our thing, and tried to elevate whatever we had and add some new and old elements back in with whatever we were already working with. And I think if that's the impression you have, I think it's definitely the singers that brought that vibe too, I think. Or I don't know. It's maybe you're thinking we're smarter than we are.
Maybe. I mean, I was looking at a track. I think the name of the song, if I'm not mistaken, is "Insect Politics." I think that's the name of the song. And you have a vocalist on that track. I don't want to divulge too much, but you have somebody on that track that gives the song a very slammy vibe. Which, when you look at his band, it fits like a glove. So, and it's the shortest track on the record.
Mm.
So I was like, wow, like perfect guest vocalist for the perfect track with the perfect sound with the perfect duration. So that was the track that kind of opened my mind with that maybe you guys thought a little bit beyond and let's
Mm.
like incorporate some elements from those bands into these songs.
Mm. No, that's funny because Insect Politics was one of the tracks that we didn't really do any change anything to, and it was one of the audition tracks that Daniel did when he joined the band. Like, he had, I think, 5 demo tracks written when he
Wow.
just joined. Yeah, yeah, crazy. And yeah, nothing got changed to that song. So it was just kind of like a old school grindy
Yeah.
tune, and we're like, yeah, let's use it. It's fine.
When you look at the discography of the band, where does this album rank for you? Not in terms of quality, but in terms of hard work, sweat, blood, and tears. How much went into this one versus some of the previous ones?
I'd say it's probably the most. because we spent like 8 weeks working on it, like in the studio. We tracked for 6 weeks, which is twice as long as we've ever done for anything. And then Dave mixed for another 2 weeks by himself, and we kind of, I think we spent 2 or 3 evenings remote, kind of like live fine tuning the mix on Discord together. So, which is also really cool. Like you're fixing it live together on the go while you're not in the same room. It's kind of mad.
What about the pre-production? Was this a longer process for this record than previous records?
Um, it was about the same as the last few records, I want to say, but we did spend an additional 3 4 days before we started recording the drums with Dave, and Dave actually also giving his feedback on the pre-production and shifting some things around. Every song got impacted a little, but the one that got impacted the most was definitely the Golgothan. I think Dave did a really cool job in completely restructuring the song with us, and it turned out way better than what we had demoed out initially.
How are you going to manage this album live? You're not going to bring everybody on the road with you, I'm assuming.
No, no, but that's a problem for future me.
Are you going to have to cover all the vocals?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm assuming you haven't really put too much thought process into it. It's just going to be like, I'll get it done.
I mean, we already played 4 of the songs on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise, and those went fine. You know, I tried to adjust my voice a little bit to however, the parts are. Kind of doing my own thing with it, of course, but trying to get to, what they were doing. And we have a North American tour coming up in June, and 2 of the bands on the lineup are also on the record. So I mean, hey, makes
Oh,
it easier for
that's
me.
killer. Yeah, that's killer. I'm loving that. Besides the North American tour that you're going to be on, I'm also going to be seeing you guys in Finland. You're playing at Sarlivetti in Tampere in August. Will some of these new tracks that you guys going to add to North American tour set list going to be also part of that show in Finland?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we live far apart, so we don't get the. We'll decide on the set list, and it'll probably be the same, most likely.
I was so excited when I saw the band was part of that festival. So we're definitely. I mean, I'm getting a double dose of Aborted this year because I'll get to see you guys during the North American run, and then I'll get to see you guys later in the summer there. So I'm really excited about that. Staying on the topic of the themes, do you have a favorite? I feel like maybe your T-shirt answers it, but do you have a favorite horror movie?
I do, and we didn't even write a song about it, so that's a cool thing. No, I think one of my all-time favorites is probably Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wow.
Mhm.
Do you like it as a series, or do you have one within the series that you prefer?
Series is rough because there's almost no series that there's no
Bad
pile of shit
ones.
in there. So,
Yeah,
but
unfortunately.
I'd say one and three for sure. I think the third one was one of the first that I've seen when I was a kid too, and it really blew me away. I mean, I've been watching horror movies since I was like 8 or something like that, or even younger. I think one of the first ones I saw was Jaws. So at
Me too.
least it was a horror movie for me back then. I
Jaws
thought
and
there'd be sharks in every pool I ever stepped in, so it makes no sense, right? But still,
I lived by the ocean. I was living in Portugal as a kid, and the first two movies that I watched, it was The Exorcist and Jaws. I think Jaws scared me more because I literally had the ocean across the street. So going into the ocean, I was always like, I better not hear that music, because if I hear that music, I'm out of here. So that was kind of my train of thought. So is it Freddy Krueger your favorite all-time horror villain, or you have a favorite horror villain?
no, I think so because he kind of combines the really being scary with also being really hilarious and silly, which is kind of what this band is. We're very brutal and abrasive, but at the same time we're a bunch of nerds that like to geek out. So you know,
And speaking of geeking out and being a nerd, are you guys going to do some of those action figures with the themes of these songs to add to your portfolio of merchandise?
No, I mean we did a apron that is kind of loosely based on it's our version of Leatherface's. If Leatherface has the stitch together faces, we made an apron made out of stitch together faces, and then we did a Rubik's cube that is, you know, our take on the lament configuration of Hellraiser. So that's the stuff that we went with for this record because we did an action figure on the last album, and it is I can tell you it's very expensive first of all to get done, and it's so much work. So
I can
we're good
imagine.
on action figures.
One last question for you. Considering the band, considering your love for horror movies, considering the album, would you ever consider working on like a TV series, creating a movie score or something along those lines for a horror movie based on the sound of the band, but also based on whatever the theme is for that movie? Would that be something that would pique
Oh
your
yeah,
interest?
absolutely. That'd be awesome.
Do you have something in mind that you would love to work on more than other, like sci-fi horror, just straight up slasher, or you don't care? You just would love to do something.
I think we'd love to do something, but looking at how extreme the band is, I think it'd be sick to do something on Terrifier because it's visually as abrasive and violent as we are musically. So that'd be cool.
Maybe if Belgium is creating a horror series for Netflix, they can invite you guys to be part of that.
Yeah, there we go.
You never know. You got to put positive vibes out there, and hopefully somebody's listening to it, and then they have the idea and they contact you guys. Because there was a TV show, I think they were German, where they travel through time through this hole and whatever.
Dark.
Yeah, yeah, and they had quite a bit of metal music in there. I remember watching it, and they had like Creator and Metallica. I mean, obviously those ones, but it would be nice to have some original score done by a metal band. I think that would be outstanding.
Absolutely.
Well, let's hope it happens. Sven, thank you very much for your time, man. I love this record, by the way. I love the idea. I love the concept. I love the execution. You know, having a guest vocalist on every track, that's freaking crazy and killer. I really enjoyed it. And some
Thank
of the songs, I don't want to say too much, but some of the tracks, I mentioned this on my album review. You guys really created musically the same ebbs and flows of the movie. And I thought that was pure genius, especially on the closing track. On the closing track of the record, I felt like I was watching the movie. Like the climax of the song, everything that that song has is a pure representation of how that movie goes. And I thought that was genius. So thank you very much for this great
you
record.
so much.
All the best, man.